I am Esther Bonney, founder and director of Nurture Natives. And if you haven't heard of Nurture Natives, we are a youth-led nonprofit dedicated to empowering youth through native biodiversity restoration. We started in 2022 when I was a high schooler, and it has grown from a 4-H project to a nationally recognized initiative empowering over 10,000 youth, distributing over 70,000 seedlings, and planting over 2.4 million seeds. And I am so excited to be here today with Robin Kimmerer, botanist, author, enrolled member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, and founder of the Center for Native Peoples and the Environment. Robin, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
You recently launched Plant Baby Plant, and I've already seen so much of it. What are your visions and your goals for the near future and for continuing that work?
Plant Baby Plant is just a seedling right now, but we're so excited about the way it's growing. I think that seed might have been like that Jack and the Beanstalk kind of seed. Because like Nurture Natives, it's really tapped in to people's desire to do right by the land and saying, how do I do that? How do I come into right relationship by healing land, by building community, and at the same time by building a kind of motive force, a kind of power to transform our relationship with the land. And one of the ways that we're going to be doing that is through storytelling. We really want the Plant Baby Plant to be a place, kind of a storytelling platform, where the folks who are planting with you, with all of the amazing organizations around the country, can tell their stories. And then the small actions that people tend to dismiss, like, oh, well, I'm just doing a community garden, or I'm just doing natives in my front yard. You realize there's no just to that, right? It is all of these things create this mosaic of biodiversity. That it is a mosaic of micro carbon sequestration. It's an amazing change. But I think we start to harness that power through storytelling and by sharing with each other about what you're doing, how you're doing it, what you're learning along the way. So that's absolutely one of the things that we're wanting to cultivate in the near future with our new website. I think another element that I would want to name is that when we think about answering this question of what does the earth ask of us in return for all of the gifts that she has given us, what are the gifts that we humans have to give back? And we're answering that with a shorthand of raise a garden in all of the forms that we've been talking about, and raise a ruckus. And so it is a dual invitation, uh, both to heal land and to recognize our power to transform the narratives that we are living by, and to reacquaint ourselves, reinvest in nature-based climate solutions.
That's beautiful. And it's so resonant. Data cannot capture it all. Stories are so needed in restoration work and relationships. And you and Plant Baby Plant capture that so beautifully. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Today we're going to explore something that I think a lot of us don't have the words for. The deep connection between caring for the land and caring for ourselves and each other and our communities. We're going to talk about what it means to bring people together across generations, across communities, and to restore what's been lost and nurture what's there. We hope this conversation sparks something in you. We invite you to listen for your own story and what we share today, where you came from, who taught you to notice the world around you, and what next step you might take in your own community. All right, I would love to start off with a question about motherhood. And in the context of intergenerational relationships, I don't think there's anything more prominent than a relationship between her mother and her child. So, Robin, how has being a mother changed your relationship with nature, and what have your children taught you about caring for yourself and just care across generations?
I think for me, one of the most formative parts of being a mother is it creates such a sense of responsibility for future generations and the world that they're going to live in. And so being a mother, I think, deepens my commitment to that work. It's personal. I want my children and my grandchildren to have birdsong around them. I want them to be able to pick berries. But when you're in that role, and especially, I think in growing to be a grandmother, that scope of responsibility just feels like it grows. It's for all children. It's for a broader future. And so, yeah, I think of the work of restoration and land care as really so closely aligned with the role of being a mother. And I like that question, what have my children taught me? You know, I really tried hard in raising my kids not to turn them into little, botany robots. And I wanted them to discover for themselves, not
Mm-hmm.
just because I was telling them. And it's that which has lasted. It's that love of being outdoors and their
Mm-hmm.
own curiosity. It's about the questions, not about the answers. And now that my children are grown, I see that in their own relationship
Mm-hmm.
with the living world is their own, and it's based on lived experiences.
Mm-hmm. That's so beautiful. And I think it's so true what you say. I I think, I mean, your children just having you as their mother and having someone in their life who they love so much and they see loves the land so much, I have no doubt that that had such a huge impact on their relationship with the land and their idea of stewardship. And you briefly mentioned berries. Speaking of berries, I recently received the service berry for my birthday, and I read it in one sitting. I couldn't put it down. It was beautiful. And you write a lot about the gift economy. I mean, that's the theme. And the gift economy is this understanding that thriving and flourishing does not come from accumulation, does not come from individualism, but it comes from circulation and from giving and receiving in relationship. And this webinar was on my mind as I read it, and I couldn't stop thinking about how this applies to intergenerational relationships. Elders, they impart knowledge, and young people offer vision and energy. And somewhere in that exchange, something much larger than either group emerges. And so, my question for you is, how do you see the gift economy playing out between generations in this work of restoration and care?
Your question makes me immediately think about in Native communities that bond between youth and elders is so alive, so present. I've been at all kinds of meetings where the meeting will not go forward because people say, "Well, where are the children? The children need to
Mm,
be." This meeting. Likewise, there's not just a youth gathering. There's like, oh well, where are the aunties and uncles? They need to be
mm,
here too. So this notion that we know more together than we do apart is so alive in Native communities, and I often wish that that could be replicated in other decision making and visioning forums. And so I'm a great believer in that reciprocity of that exchange between generations. And, I like the way you characterize it as kind of a gift exchange. But, I think there's also something else going on there in addition to the exchange of, let's say, experience and energy, which is so true and valuable, but also the sense of solidarity, of common purpose.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
One of the things that I think can often be an impediment in staying with difficult projects is that you feel alone, or even starting difficult projects, you feel alone.
Definitely.
But to create that sense of intergenerational solidarity, to have the elders say, "We got you," and to have the young people say, "Well, we got you,"
Mm.
that shared support lends such a big sense of purpose, because then it's for the land, it's for the people when we all come together to do it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think Western society has a lot to learn from that point. It's so critical that we learn from each other, and so often just by default of age, we're placed into groups that of people that are only our age. And I think that's so important to constantly just be exchanging ideas and perspectives with people of other ages. You're right. It creates such a sense of solidarity. I love that.
Mhm. And creativity, I have the great privilege as a professor of being surrounded by idealistic young
Hmm.
people. And I think of all the things that I learned from them. And one of them is about new kinds of storytelling. Storytelling, I think, is what really connects us to the movement and to the work. But there's so many ways to tell stories, and I'm constantly learning that from my students, and uh,
Hmm.
it's such a great privilege to be just surrounded by
Hmm.
people of all different ages and experience.
Yes, yes. And in the same context of the gift economy, while I was reading and thinking about the gifts that the environment offers us, I was also thinking about the gifts that we all have and that we all contribute to our communities. And sometimes I think so often youth just don't recognize the gifts that they have to offer and they haven't lived that potential yet. And I think in intergenerational relationships, and especially in my experience, I found that these older people see these gifts in me before I see them in myself. And that's so powerful.
Yes. You're so right, Esther. And then there's that power of invitation, isn't there? When someone says to you, "Oh, I think that I think that this path, we need you on this path. I want to walk with you on this path."
Mhm.
Thank you for surfacing that. It brings back memories of people who did that for me, who said,
Yes.
"Oh, yeah, here's something you might want to try." Um,
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
yeah, that's a powerful gift.
Yes, yes. And I think it's something so integral to intergenerational relationships because in my experience, the older people in my life have been so good at that. They've just been so constantly supportive. And, young people sometimes we're a little focused and we're busy and tied up in our own worlds, but older people, my mentors, my parents, they're looking at the young people. And even I'm looking at the younger people than me, and it's a powerful thing. My next question for you, you write and you talk about how the land is never silent. And with your newly launched initiative, Plant Baby Plant, it invites people to listen and to learn this language and understand the messages of the land. Young people I speak to, they're raising such urgent questions about the future, about our environment, and each generation brings its own unique set of perspectives. And I'm so curious as to how you approach this work of translation, helping people hear the land and helping generations hear one another.
You know, it feels to me sometimes like, well, I suppose it's like any teacher will say, you know, how to learn how to connect. You have to go to class. You have to show up. You have to give attention. And to me, again, it's that invitation to learn from the land. And when we think about the land as, you know, either green wallpaper or a source of ecosystem services or a garden, any of those things, that's a whole range, isn't it, of ways to perceive the land. But when you start to think about the land as a teacher, it really changes your perspective. And that's to me the translation is that I love to bring people into nature. And it doesn't have to be a crazy, wild, remote place. It can be your backyard, your schoolyard, and say, what is this place teaching me? Look at all of these beings and the patterns and the way that this is put together. Nothing is ever random. What is the pattern? What is being shown you here? And that awakens a kind of attention, um, simply by planting the seed that the land could be your teacher. And of course, this is really well grounded in the emerging science of biomimicry, isn't it? To say that our sustainability solutions, to say nothing of engineering and design solutions, should be informed by the evolved solutions of the natural world. So, how do we pay attention to the living world with that question in mind of what could you teach me? And then it individualizes it, turns it into a one-on-one relationship between the observer and the natural world. And that is an individual pathway into that relationship, which can be really exciting.
Yes, that's beautiful. And I think that's why there are so many powerful metaphors in nature, and that's what drew me to native plants. I saw myself in them. And just like you say, we plant a seed, we plant a native plant. I always talk to the youth and I say, and you know, native plants, they're here for a reason. Nature doesn't make a mistake. And native plants, they grow where they're planted, they thrive, and through the harsh winters, through the droughts, they'll keep on going. And you're here for a reason. Uh, the universe doesn't make mistakes. And just like this native plant is so needed here, you are so needed here. I think that's so beautiful. And there are just so many metaphors in nature because it's the most incredible teacher.
Oh, Esther, I just think you've got it exactly right of that invitation to purpose. There are so many folks who are struggling because we don't necessarily know our purpose. Why am I here? What is my role? What are my gifts? What can I give? Especially in this time of crisis, quite honestly. When the future is in such uncertainty, what can my role be? And so your invitation to say, every being has a niche, every being has a role, and the whole does not work unless all of the beings give their gift. And that I think helps people step out of the shadows, doesn't it? To say, oh, I have a gift. You sure do, and we need you to give it.
Yes, and that's why I always say I think native plants and native planting is the most accessible and empowering form of climate action, especially among youth. Anyone can plant a seed and they water it and they see growth. And that leads me so perfectly into my next question. We talk about eco-anxiety and sometimes feeling overburdened just by this work and by these environmental issues, and it can feel really heavy at times. And the scale of what needs doing, the urgency, the grief of what's been lost, especially when talking about native species. Um, but your writing and your interviews, and whenever I speak to you, you're just so full of wonder and so full of light. And I'm curious, how do you make room for both? How do you keep joy alive in this work? I think that's something youth constantly really need to be reminded of.
I think that the framing of your question, in that it's about both, right? Because we have to feel that grief of loss. If we are trying to just brush that under the rug and not look at it, we are we're ignoring we are ignoring the our own power of that sadness and disappointment and indeed shame of what we have done, because those negative emotions are really powerful, and when we embrace them, that is, I think, what can transmute into joy, to say, oh, I see the wounds and I love the world so much, I'm going to contribute to healing those wounds. So the bothness is so important. And to me, I think of how much joy the living world gives me, every time. It never fails, even after all of these decades. Joy is what the living world gives me, and so I want to give it back. We can't do this work without joy. We can't do this work without a sense of creativity and curiosity and solidarity. So I think movements fizzle when they're not fun. The people who have the most fun win, because where do you want to go? Where there's laughter, where there's singing, where there's people who feel like, oh, we are in this together. Man, there is nothing better than planting with a whole bunch of other folks, right? You just feel all of those things together, and that great sense of agency and power that not only changes the land, but changes us too.
Hmm. That's beautiful. And I think what you said is so true. Just the grief of having lost something, it inspires and motivates you that much more to keep working and to keep putting in your all. And I talk with youth and I share my story, I hear their stories, and a huge focus of Nurture Natives is on mental health and empowering youth in that way. And that conversation can sometimes get heavy as we talk about things that we've lost, people we've lost, but it makes the work that much more meaningful. And I think that's so powerful. And like you said, if if we've lost something, we can say, "Oh, I wish that I just had a garden here." Well, you can work with other people, you can bring other people in to create that garden and to create that better future and better environment, and it makes it that much more meaningful. My next question for you, some people come to native plants as a passing interest and others dedicate decades to this work, such as you. You have been in this relationship with plants your whole life. What do you think makes the difference? What kinds of relationships with plants, with mentors and youth, with community inspire people to stay engaged for the long term?
When I think about the folks that I know of who have been doing this for so long, they are sort of models of belonging. When you feel like you belong to a place, there's a kind of mutual accountability, isn't there? And and so cultivating a sense of place, knowing the stories of that place, both the harms and the regeneration, the things that have caused this place to struggle are part of its story too. And so how do you then enter that story with a sense of purpose and belonging to place? And that sense of belonging is, I think, critical to identity, to well-being, and to a sense of ongoing commitment that keeps you coming back to the garden, to the restoration site, to the reforested arena. It's also a sense of investment, isn't it? To know that if that place that you're working on is nearby to you, you can come back, and you need to come back over and over, and you see the growth, you see the bloom, you see the pollinators. That's uh, that's a powerful reward for hands in the dirt. As if hands in the dirt isn't reward enough. It is. But I think the other thing I would add to that, the thing that I've seen ignite people in care for the land is when they receive in a very material way the gifts of the land. When I am with my students and the first time they put a wild plant in their mouths, they're looking at me like really tentatively, like, oh, should I do this? Well, of course you should. That's why these plants are here. They're here giving themselves to you. Yes, eat those berries. Chew that leaf. Make that tea. Make that medicine, and that creates a really, really strong bond because you feel like not only do I care for the land, but the land cares for me, and that sense of belonging creates kind of an unbreakable bond.
Hmm. Hmm. I love that. And it's so true. So many aspects of the land and of stewardship inspire that sense of belonging. And I think as we distanced ourselves from nature, and especially youth just naturally spending more and more time inside on their phones, less time with the earth, we lose so much of that sense of belonging and in our own identity. I mean, you don't have to be a botanist or a climate scientist. You must have that relationship with the earth. It's so important. That identity of belonging. I love how you phrased that. And
Could I add
also,
one thing to that,
yeah.
Esther? That idea of the way that material gifts, food and berries and nuts, medicines from the land are a way of creating that belonging. To me, that is a really good guidance for some of the decisions that we make about the communities that we want to be either creating in a garden or in restoration, is to bear that in mind, that what are the plants in that we are reintroducing that can help create that relationship. um, when I meet kids who have never picked wild berries or picked up a hickory nut off the ground, smashed it open, and that, oh my goodness, what is this amazing food here? I think we should be mindful of inviting those plant teachers into our landscapes who are particularly good, those charismatic plants who are particularly good at creating that bond of joy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's so enticing. I mean, to be able to go out and pick berries from your garden or from your school garden, that's a future that I'm so excited to see. And we're talking about biophilia and this innate desire to be close with the natural world and this innate love for the natural world. And what struck me most in your view of biophilia is its sense of reciprocity. And we've touched on this. It's not just that we love the natural world loves us. for people who may have grown up, or for youth growing up, disconnected from nature, or who carry grief about ecological loss or the current state of our environment and the climate, how can we help them experience um, this biophilia and access this pathway to igniting that and fostering that?
You know, I want to circle right back to your first question about mothering. You know, because mothering is where we first experience that mutual love, isn't it? Of loving and being loved. And in Potawatomi culture, when we talk about Shkok we are talking about Mother Earth. And it's not an empty metaphor. It is the place where we experience that exchange of love. You know, not only in all of the things that Mother Earth provides for us materially, but just like our own moms, our own parents, you know, she teaches us lessons too. Sometimes those are hard lessons by taking something away, by making you sit in the naughty chair. You know, there there are lessons that Mother Earth is teaching us, as well as showering us with gifts. And to me, that taking the sense of Mother Earthness, motherness of Earth, out of being a metaphor and into being a reality changes everything. Um, because we sometimes say, well, we wouldn't harm what we love. Well, we still do. But I think the powerful formulation is, would we harm who loves us? Everything in our lives is given to us by the land. To me, that is an act of love. You know, in Potawatomi language, some of the ways that we talk about things like buds and fruits, for example, in the language, is the connotation of love. That this the unconditional love of the land. And how do we tie that to grief? You know, let's say that if our mother or our grandmother has been harmed or sick, we don't walk away from her. We don't say, "Oh, wow, this is devastating. See ya." You know, we love her all the more tenderly, and that's part of this exchange. You know, some of the places that I love best in the world are wounded landscapes, where they need love, and where the plants and animals there are so resilient and creative problem solvers of thinking, how are we going to heal this land? I want to be like that. And that is one of the lessons, I think, that Mother Earth is teaching us. How do we be like that?
Yes. And I love that discussion so much because as a youth, I'm constantly talking to other youth and just my friends about our parents and these relationships. And I think what you spoke about with love and gifts is so true. And also just recognizing, I think about my own mother and the sacrifices that she makes for me. They don't just inspire love, they inspire so much respect. And I think that as youth distance themselves from nature, we just don't see these gifts. I mean, what you said is so true. We protect what we love, but we can't. How do we know if we love it if we haven't spent any time with it? We need to have these memories with it. And to even be able to just recognize the gifts and the sacrifices that the earth is making for us and that it provides us. And I think that so many youth nowadays, they recognize that. And that's why we're so ready to take part in political action, in this restorative action, because we recognize that these gifts are being taken away. And we don't want to see our mother go. We want to keep her here. I think it's so beautiful.
Beautifully said, Esther. And I think that action on defense in defense of Mother Earth is a kind of wonderful creative resistance. It's behind what you do. It's behind what Plant Baby Plant is trying to do, is to harness that sense of creative resistance and say that, when the world says this is the way, the outside world, right, says this is the way it's going to be, we're going to treat the earth as if it was a big old Amazon warehouse, that you say no. It's a form of really active defense and resistance that are aligned with your values. Um, so I think that's where so much of the purpose of what we're both trying to encourage comes from, is to saying, no, my values are different than that. And I'm going to live them by being an ally to the good grief. Yeah, nice. Nice. Aren't we lucky? Aren't we lucky, Esther, to have been, held as kids? When I listened to your wonderful TED talk and heard about your growing up, how growing up in nature gives us this foundation of belonging and wonder and joy that creates a sense of purpose. So I just want to give gratitude for that, because that's something that's accessible to everyone, but so often is missing. But it's waiting for you. It's just waiting for you outside. So we need to go, right? Yeah, we need to go out there. Yeah. When I was watching your TED talk, I was struck by how you described this widespread experience that you've talked about already this morning, of sadness, of loneliness, of sometimes a sense of disconnection among young people. And I was just listening to a podcast the other day that was talking about an epidemic of loneliness, sadness, disconnection, feeling disrespected, lack of agency. And it was among a community of elders who were naming those same ills. Um, and so I wonder about the ways in which the work that young people are doing, the work that of Plant Baby Plant, of Wild Ones, of American Forests, etc. Can you imagine what it would look like to have an intergenerational coalition? Because the land is the medicine that we need for both age groups, for every human, honestly. What might that look like? Have you thought about that? What would an intergenerational coalition look
Mhm.
like?
I love that question. It makes me think about the themes we were talking about before with just the gift economy. And I think that in so many ways, intergenerational relationships bring out the most beautiful parts of each other. And I think both elders and both youth, they want to be listened to and they want to be understood. And that is very clear. And I think about my relationship with my mentor, uh, Miss Marlene Smith, who was a master gardener and has just been such a pillar of support in my life. And she provided me provide me practical support driving to and from these events, and in so many ways just something I as a youth could not do. And then emotional support, just being there for me. And I think that when youth have someone, sometimes it's a person outside their family, sometimes they need someone outside their family to just be that person for them. When they have an older person believing in them and seeing, how we've talked about before, so often they see what youth cannot yet see in themselves and in their future. I think that's so powerful. And elders see themselves in the youth and see them as to see their potential. I think that this vision of potential is brought out so beautifully in intergenerational relationships.
Nice, nice. Yeah, and that I I love that simple example of an older person driving you to the places that you needed to be. It seems like the simplest exchange, and yet it speaks volumes, doesn't it? That you you your ideas, your vision are worth my investment. I want you to grow and blossom into this because your ideas are so important. And then likewise, the conversations that you have, your teaching and mentorship of me is so valuable to me. Um, yeah, imagine the sense of community and sense of place, a mutual belonging that will emerge from that. I'm really excited to think about ways in which Plant Baby Plant could be a place for creating intergenerational partnerships. Um, Esther, we got to keep working together. This would be amazing.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think,
oh, go ahead.
oh, sorry. I think it's so beautiful. It just, I keep going back to this idea of the gift economy and of reciprocity. Youth are so eager to have someone hear them and listen to them, and elders are so willing to impart their knowledge and just their experience. And I think that that's so powerful. I just think that the reciprocity is so naturally there. It kills me sometimes that not every youth has a community mentor that's there for them. I think just if we bring that back, if we can bring that to our community and just inspire community service in this intergenerational context, I think that's so powerful. I don't think that restoration work can be done to the fullest extent if it's just a group of youth or if it's just a group of elders with experience and knowledge. I don't think that's sustainable.
I think you're right. Yeah, it's exciting to think about that power. I think that we both agree and have experienced not only in our own lives but in our communities the power of being exposed to nature at a young age. It's what set you on your path, as I heard in your bio in your TED talk. It was certainly true for me, and I think about my students who are passionate restoration ecologists, and you ask them why, and they're going to say, "Well, when I was a kid, there was a creek I loved, or there was a median strip in a parking lot, but that's where I would go to find caterpillars." You know, it's biophilia, isn't it? And we know that 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 initial experience of biophilia is so important for physical well-being, for mental well-being, but we also know that that takes access to nature, and that access to nature is there's a tremendous disparity, isn't there, in access to nature. We know, you know, that tree canopies, for example, access to parks, the possibility of going out and picking berries is not equally distributed. And so I'd really love to hear your thinking in the work that you've been doing of distributing seeds and plants and helping people start native plant gardens to nurture natives. What are the kinds of approaches that are important in addressing this issue of justice in access to natural landscapes?
Mhm. I think the first step is helping youth recognize what nature is. You don't have to be at a national park. You don't have to be in the tropics. Nature is everywhere. And the butterfly outside, the tree in your neighborhood, even the wind on your face, I think it's that can spark this sense of biophilia. But I think that you're exactly right. A disparity certainly exists, and we can't ignore it. And I think that the most we can do right now is continue reaching out to underserved communities and continue working with them and building that sense of community. It begins at community. And I think that another beautiful aspect of biophilia is that sometimes nature has to be there, but also having someone in your life that loves the earth and you see that in them, I think that's so powerful. So in schools, that's why I love going to schools because when I see so many youth, they maybe they're not super passionate about learning about, all the native butterflies of their state, but they're so excited to see another youth passionate about this. And they're like, that's so cool. I want to see what I can do. That's so beautiful. And I mean that goes back to these relationships of all ages that we talk about. I've seen this love of nature. I've been blessed to have so many people in my life that respect and love the outdoors, and that rubbed off on me since I was so young.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you've invoked your mentors, and the importance of having those mentors along the way. You know, if you could issue an invitation to mentors, what would that look like, Esther? What would you want to say to people to encourage them to be that person for someone?
Mhm. Reach out. Reach out to the youth in your life. I think about my mentor, Miss Marlene, and if I could have a fraction of the impact on a young person that she had on me, I would have lived a meaningful, fulfilled life. I cannot begin to express how grateful and and just blessed I feel that she was there for me and I feel that she invested so much in me. And I think that, even and in my young life, just being I taught music and I've spoken to youth and even just being with these young people, in my mind, I'm like, of course, I love to invest in these young people. Of course, I'm going to invest my time and energy into these presentations, into these lessons, because this is our future. And I think that us as youth sometimes don't see that, sometimes don't see why people are so willing to invest in us or listen to us. And it means the world. I mean, that's what parents are for, and that's what mentors can be. I I think it would be so beautiful. You hear about community service, and it's just this, for youth, it's like get your community service hours then, so check the box. But I think it can be so much more. It's so powerful. I mean, it's not just this extracurricular that you need to get out of the way. Having a community mentor and serving your community with them, it transformed my life. I mean, that's what Nurture Natives was born out of, not this desire to change the world or completely revolutionize native plants across the United States. I mean, that's the goal. That's the vision now. But it was even now being with your community and just these relationships are the most meaningful thing and what I always come back to. I mean, I just want to be with you, and youth want to be with someone who believes in them.
Mm, I love that. That's a wonderful invitation. I'm thinking about master gardeners, folks who have so much knowledge and passion to not wait, is what I hear you saying, for somebody to come to you, but to reach out, and to be always on the lookout for that spark. You know, I it feels like one of the most important things we can do as humans is to blow on someone else's spark, right? So that it ignites, and yeah, and it's so reciprocal in the returns of that. Yeah, nice.
It absolutely is. And I think that one more aspect of this is that a lot of youth I talk to, they value their independence. And in my journey, me founding Nurture Natives and having something that I've created was so powerful and such a motivator. And I'm so grateful that my mentor and my parents, they were so supportive of that. And some maybe my passions were drifting a little bit from where I originally started, and they continued supporting me. I think that supporting youth in their individual passions, maybe an individual project, that can go so far. I mean, as we've seen with Nurture Natives, this isn't mine. This is all, everything belongs to my mentors, belongs to the youth that supported me and the youth that I've been able to reach. It is not mine.
Yeah. Oh, and that upholding the individual gift is so important,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think real mentorship is
Yes.
growing you as a species all on your own. You know,
Yeah.
a different
Yes.
flower, and respecting that autonomy and difference. Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
that's awesome. You know, both Nurture Natives, Plant Baby Plant, Wild Ones, and many of our wonderful allied organizations were really, as we know, all about trying to invite people into this work of restoring nature in a sense of
Hmm.
nature based climate solutions. And one of the things that I think we all collectively need to be really thinking about, as we all have, and I'd love to hear your take on this, is what are the barriers? What are the barriers to getting involved? Because oftentimes once people take that first step and they're
Yes.
planting a wildflower meadow with their community, like, oh, they are sold. But what do you think are some of the barriers to that initial involvement, that movement makers like yourself have to be aware of and navigate, so that all this love and energy that we're pouring into the work is going into the places that really make a difference?
Right. I think it goes back to our perception of community service. I think of this question particularly in the context of youth, and youth, they're busy, they're wrapped up in their schoolwork and their home lives and think, oh, okay, community service is a great thing, but I need to focus on my life and myself right now. But if you go out, when you go out and you start planting these, it's such a beautiful break. It's like a spinning top, and you think things are just getting faster and faster, and we just don't have time to go out and do these things and give back. But it benefits your life in so many ways. I think especially when it comes to gardening. I mean, it's like the most popular hobby in the United States for people above 60. Ah, but I want to bring gardening. I want to redefine it, especially among youth's perceptions of it. And nurseries and gardens and community gardens, to make them a place of belonging and a place of connection, especially among youth. I don't think you think of gardens or nurseries particularly in that way, but once they do, I think the invitation will become that much more beautiful and that much more exciting.
Yes, redefining gardening. That's, yeah, you think about all the fabulous energy in community gardens
Mhm.
that bring
Yes.
everybody together.
Mhm.
Redefining gardening as a place where you meet, where you get energy, where you foment good trouble. All kinds of things happen in the garden. That's a great idea. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Yeah. And so that really means we have to tell the story differently of gardening, huh? That it isn't,
Yes.
yeah, there
Yes.
there is a sort of this. a stereotype because neither of us conform to that. I have to remember that there is a
I
stereotype.
don't think native plants conform to that. Yeah.
That's right. That we're just pruning roses, not
Yeah.
but right, right. Yeah. Yeah. And again, that in particularly in this moment that we can think about showing up for beautiful, productive landscapes that provide habitat for biodiversity. That's an act of creative resistance too. That's saying,
Yes.
yep,
Hmm.
this is this is the work. You
Yes.
know, I wanted to ask you if you would say more. Again, I learned so much from your TED talk about this feedback loop between mental health and well-being and the sense of purpose engaged in Nurture Natives. Um, you're so adept at making those connections, and I'm guessing that folks and not everyone in the audience has heard your wonderful talk about that. Could you talk to us about that feedback loop between mental well-being and the work that you're inviting people to?
It goes back to these themes of individuality in native planting. And the metaphors that nature provides to us. That is my favorite thing about native plants and just native gardens. I love going to youth and speaking to them not just about native plants, but about how they see themselves in native plants. And with specifically with environmental stewardship and mental well-being, I mean, I think it's so critical. And sometimes I say, oh, I love to explore the intersection of environmental stewardship and mental well-being. And people say, oh, that's niche. I think it's so critical and so clear and just so natural. I mean, like I said, not everyone needs to become a master gardener or become a climate scientist, but to have that relationship with the earth, it's so integral. I mean, you've seen our youth have just we continue to alienate ourselves from nature and distance ourselves from nature by just becoming an indoor species and being on our phones and being on social media, and that isn't going away, and I don't think that's a terrible thing that needs to be abolished, but there certainly needs to be a balance. I think it's so many aspects of our mental health. I mean, it's connected to nature and connected to biophilia. I mean, we are an outdoor species for so long, and this is relatively new for us and unnatural. And so it's no wonder that it's doing unnatural things to our minds and our feelings of belonging. I think that's why gardening can just be such a transformative thing. I mean, we don't need to go live in tents again. But for youth to be able to go outside and eat berries from their garden, or go outside and see butterflies and bees or hear them from inside their house, that's, I think that will just so incredibly powerful. That's why I think that the mental health crisis, the biodiversity crisis are so intertwined.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. When I think about the work that we are both trying to do, Esther, of movement making, I recognize, almost every day I'm saying, oh dear, I'm a restoration ecologist. I'm a botanist. I don't know how to make a movement. I am humbled every day, like of the things that I have to learn, and and for me that is such a joy to ally myself with people who do know how and learn from them, um, and that's what a community means, right? We don't all have the same gifts. I would love to hear if you would reflect on what you've been learning as a founder of a movement. What are some of the things that you have learned, or that you're acutely aware that you do need to learn? I'm just interested in those moments when you say, "Oh, wow, I really need to learn about this," or "I did just learn about this."
Yes, yes, I love this question. I What it means to be a founder of a movement is constantly being reminded of what you don't know and what you have to learn. I Every day I'm outside working with native species, or I'm prepping for conferences, and I don't know this. I don't know every species. I don't know everything. And sometimes it causes a spiral of little anxiety, and I need to learn this. I need to know this. I mean, there are so many aspects, as anyone will tell you who has worked in grassroots initiatives, so many aspects of the work, and no one's going to be an expert in it. And that's my favorite thing about working with youth. I go to the schools, I work with the youth, I witness just this childlike wonder and enthusiasm, and I'm like, that's all you need. That is all you need. Nurture natives. I mean, I started when I was a freshman in high school, and I'm sure I'll look back in 2 years and be like, oh my goodness, Esther, what a baby in 2026. And I look back now to freshman Esther and think, oh, what a baby, so young, so much to learn. And I'll continue thinking that. But it didn't matter. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to have the passion for it. And you just have to be willing to talk to people and to put yourself out there. People see sincere passion, and that's what matters.
Yes, yes. It is that energy that's and belief that's contagious, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And we have to remember that that's contagious and spread it.
Yes.
That's what the movement is, isn't it? It's spreading it,
Hmm.
giving, inviting other people to the party and to the planting party,
Yeah.
as it were. You know, you asked me at the outset of our conversation a question I want to ask you now, which is, this is hard work. It's joyful work, but
Hmm.
it's also hard work, and many folks in in the environmental movement, social justice movements,
Hmm.
etc., we know that this heavy work can burn us out. So, could you share some of your strategies for for this continued enthusiasm and joy? What is it that really propels you?
The biggest thing is relationships and being around people who love and care for me. I think in so many of these conversations, I bring my thoughts in about not doing enough or not feeling enough, and I'm talking with other youth, and they also echo that. And I think that that's so easy to feel in environmental work. And the most important thing is that you're doing enough because you are you. And I know that sounds cliche, but every youth is so unique. Every person is so unique, and just going outside and planting a seed is so admirable. I mean, to make the effort, that's what counts. No one is going to be able to save the world on their own. What is so beautiful to me, again, about community service and about native planting is the community that it builds, and the community that you must have around you to sustain yourself in this kind of work, because it does get tough. It does become a lot. And that's why, to me, native plants and nurture natives, it's so important to stay community based and to focus on community mentors, because that's what it comes back to. And I think of the mentors in my life, and I think of them so fondly because they were there for me when those rough patches hit. And that's what made all the difference. I mean, whether you're planting one seedling or 1,000 seedlings, honestly, it's just the fact that you're planting a seedling. That's that matters.
Yeah, you're taking action. Yeah. Wonderfully said.
Mhm.
Wonderfully said. Well, as you look to the future, I know that you have a lot on your plate as a student, as an activist and organizer. What are some of your hopes for Nurture Natives in 2026?
I have so many dreams for it, and I just want to continue reaching as many youth as possible. I mean, with college starting, I've gotten a little busy with it, but I miss that feeling of being in schools and talking to youth. So I want to start doing that again and do that at the same pace that I was and continue reaching as many youth as I can, bring youth on board for Nurture Natives and have a really holistic youth-led vision of Nurture Natives. I am always looking for youth to join our team and to continue collaborating, just building connection and getting the word out there.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I have so much admiration for what you're doing and the spirit in which you're doing it, Esther. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for the chance to visit with you, to learn from you. And I hope that we could continue to walk this path together
Hmm.
and in mutual support.
Yes, yes. Robin, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to ask you questions and to hear your questions for me and just have a conversation. I love so many themes that we brought up and that we resonate on. It's so powerful to me and just a testament to the power of intergenerational relationships and the potential of them. And to everyone listening, just I hope you take this as an invitation, whether you are a youth or an elder, to reach out to those around you and to share your passion for this work and to just share your unique self and your unique gifts because our communities will have so much to learn from you and this is a collective work.